guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Hugh McDonald and Steven Naismith here with us on this Thursday with lots to talk about. We'll be looking back over last night's Premiership matches, getting the thoughts of all the guys on the results from the 6 games played in the Scottish Premiership. We'll also look at the English Premier League and the big game tonight, Tottenham against Liverpool. We'll be talking League 1 and League 2. Will they be able to play £15,000 a month, get the tests and get back playing by March? Fingers crossed. We'll get Roughie's take on that. You will hear from Neil Lennon. You will hear from Jack Ross, Steven Gerrard. Lots of managers giving us their thoughts and players on the games last night. And as ever, in this month, as we get ever closer to the transfer window closing, we'll be talking about players coming and going. So, with that in mind, you can follow us on our Facebook. Don't forget to share the stream and hit the red button to subscribe on our YouTube channel. Simple as that. Okay, first one in. Hibs against Rangers. It was a solitary goal by Morelos. In the end, they got the job done, Roughie.
Yeah, they certainly did. I think we all knew it was going to be not an easy win. We knew Hibs were going to have to dig in after the poor result of the weekend. They didn't have many chances. I think Hibs' main problem is the 2 strikers who were on fire a couple of months ago aren't on fire now, and they're struggling a wee bit. But certainly last night, for me again, the boy Porteous, I don't know what he was doing, leaving Morelos out wide and then into the box, and then he just left him. I'm sure his manager wouldn't be happy with that. But no, I don't think Hibs have got any qualms about it. I think Rangers, although it was only 1-0, deserved to win the game.
Yeah, there's more than a few chances. I thought the actual way they constructed the goal, apart from the fact didn't pick up the runner, Stephen, it was a well taken goal by Rangers. Again, it's similar to a number of goals they've been scoring this season. That nice little interplay.
It is. I think that's been noticeable improvement from last season. Is the patience in the final third. They think they understand what needs to. They maybe need to make 3 passes to pull somebody like Porteous out of position, and then they have the colour pass that gets them in. But I don't think the pitch helped the game in general. It was a very poor pitch, but on the whole, Rangers thoroughly deserved it. And I think Hibs are in this rut in a sense that they've had a few bad results and pressure's mounting in terms of there's an expectation there, and it's one they're going to need to deal with.
Should Alfredo Morelos have stayed on the pitch, Hugh McDonald?
No, he's sent off. It's a red card. I think even Kevin Clancy sees it again. He'll look at that and see that he's got that one wrong, Peter. Pretty straightforward red card.
See, just on that,
quite...
there was 2 minutes just before that stamp that Porteous kicks the ball off the back of Morelos when he fouls him, and he never reacted, never took the bait, and I was thinking that's maybe a turning point, but then 2 minutes later he straight legs him.
See, in the 1970s, Stephen, when you didn't have the cameras there, you could think, I'll hang on a couple of minutes and I'll get that boy back, But right now they're analysing it, and you would expect the SFA to serve him with a notice of complaint.
Yeah, nobody will complain about that. But see that I'm playing on the edge. I think that's key to his performances. I think the stamp's outright outrageous, but in terms of being on the edge, the cat and mouse with defenders, that's what riles him up, and that's how you get the best out of him. So it's about him being a bit cuter and clever about the way he plays, I think.
No surprise, the manager Steven Gerrard wanted to focus on the positives of getting the 3 points.
Over the course of the game, we've had the best chances, and we were the team that were really looking likely to go and win it. And this was a tough fixture. I think people would have been on the outside looking at this fixture as maybe one where we would have had a bit of a bump, but our performance deserved what we're taking away from here tonight.
Yeah, and just in case you thought the reporter didn't ask him the question, lots of people asked Steven Gerrard the question about the Morelos stamp.
I haven't had time to look at any of the instances from the game. I remember a few on both sides. But I'd rather talk about the performance and the level of it. There's another fantastic team goal. Alfredo will deserve the credit for finishing that off. I took him off at the weekend to have him really fresh for tonight because I knew he would have had to do a lot of running. I knew we weren't going to come here to play a technical game. We wanted to really find the space. And then when we got into the final third, then show our stuff and our quality.
Yeah, I think Hibs were disappointing, putting up a fight in that game. But Jack Ross wanted to highlight that key moment that he thought there should have been a red card that would have benefited Hibs.
It's a red card, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't. You can ask me, and I don't think my opinion is going to be any different to every single person that was here and every single person that watched it. It's quite an easy one to say it should be a red card, but obviously it was missed by the match official.
In the end, though, Rangers again, Roughie, just relentless, picking up the win and on they go. I thought that would have been one of their toughest games of the last few weeks, and it didn't materialise, really.
Yeah, I think we all thought it was a tough one, even although Hibs aren't playing as well as what they were doing. Still going to Easter Road is a difficult place to go to. I think their manager will be a bit disappointed. They never put up more of a fight. But I think Rangers' strength, that we've seen all year now, is the same as when Celtic were flying. People coming off the bench and every one of them chipping in. There's not been one failure coming off that Rangers bench in any of the games. And that's always a big thing, when you're on a wee run, that these guys are all chipping in and they're replacing like for like. And I think that's where they're getting most of the success.
Yeah, I think the only real chance for Hibs was a Jackson Irvine opportunity. It was an absolute howler of a miss from close range. But other than that, I don't think too many Hibs fans will have too much to argue about. Rangers well worthy of the 3 points. And they have managed to conclude a deal, a pre-contract for Jack Simpson. Jack Simpson, I hear you say, who is he? Well, here's a wee bit of detail. There he is, Bournemouth, 24-year-old centre-back and left-sided. And as you can see there, 35 appearances, 1 goal. Got him on a pre-contract. High hopes for him, and you can tell Steven Naismith that Steven Gerrard's certainly not going to rest on his laurels. If he is indeed going to celebrate winning the league, he's certainly going to make sure that he's getting yet again another higher calibre players to come in.
Yeah, I think him coming through the Bournemouth Academy is going to tell you under Eddie Howe especially that he's going to technically have a level there that will probably suit the old firm. But this is where Rangers and Celtic need to be at. They need to be picking good quality younger players that they can develop a bit and sell them on, because that is, unfortunately for Scottish football, that's the way forward. I think we've seen it over the years, and under Wilson, I think, and his knowledge, especially of the English game, you'll continue to see this happening at every window.
Yeah, okay, they got the 3 points. One little footnote, Hugh McDonald, Josh Doig, a number of clubs down south, just exactly doing what Steven Naismith mentioned there, having a wee look to see his development. Celtic have also been linked with him, but I don't know what it is over the last 10 years, Hugh. Have we gone through this kind of a think tank where we decided we need 42 great left backs and no centre halves or right backs?
Yeah, it becomes a one where I think the case with Celtic is as well is that the quality of the left back they lost makes any replacement look bad in comparison. Doig looks really good. He's got his downsides. We know he's been hooked on occasion because wingers have got to him on occasion. He's very, very quick. He's technically very good. And as you see, like the Hickeys, the more prominent Tierney and Robertson, we seem to be producing a lot of decent young fullbacks. Interestingly, just to a further point in the Rangers' performance, and I think it's sometimes in the whole mayhem of the season, Peter, it's somewhat gone under the radar, but I think the two things that did Rangers, well, two of the big things that did Rangers last season was that inability to just unpick a defence sitting in. They've mastered that this season, and the number of clean sheets and goal conceded. Mourinho always says, goals might win games, but defences win titles, and their defensive record this year has been astonishing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Hugh, that you make on that. The back line, I think, is really the foundation of the success. But of course, I think, as Stephen touched on earlier, some of the interplay and the quick passing has opened up very, very tight defences and some good goals as well. Aribo's at the weekend. Of course, Ryan Jacks was a replica style goal of last night's as well, that quick passing, breaking down the defence. So Rangers get their 3 points. You touched on Celtic there, Roughie. I was working last night, managing to do a bit of commentary for Sunset and Vine on Celtic against Hamilton Accies. I had a lot of people saying nice things about me, but the best line that came out of the whole thing, Ruffy, was one guy says it's like North Korean TV. He's been told what to say, and I got up this morning. And I couldn't stop laughing. I thought, now that's the best line. If you're going to get a boot or a baseball bat over your head, that's the best line to get. But watching the game, the one thing that was unfolding, Ruffy, was Celtic needed a goal to calm those jittery nerves, and they got one through Lee Griffiths.
Yeah, it was a good strike, a really good strike. He took it quite early, what I think took the goalkeeper by surprise. But apart from that, you just have to look at the stats. You know, it was one-way traffic. I think Hamilton, the boy Mayo, had one chance, you know, but I think he saw it quite late and it just sort of a hit off him. But I think Neil Lennon would be wanting a wee bit more than two. I think 3 and 4 would have been more pleasing. But you're right, you know, any kind of win at all. And it looks as if he's identifying players that he wants to play from now to the end of the season. And he's going to give them a run, you know, which might be the best thing for everybody. If you know that you're going to be playing week in, week out, your confidence gets better. So it remains to be seen how they do. They've got St Mirren again at home. And somebody was telling me Rangers have only got 2 games in April or something like that. I don't know. Can't get my head around that one. And Celtic have got about 5 or 6. Obviously, they're behind them. But I thought Rangers would have had more games. But no, I think he just needs points on the board. He needs to. Everybody keeps talking about 20 points, 23 points. That needs to get down to 15, 14 and take the pressure off him.
Yeah, you mentioned Lee Griffiths getting the goal. The other man that got the goal, and he's played with 2 up front, which he wants to do, Hugh. I'm going to touch on the goalkeeper in a minute, but Edouard got his goal, and he held the ball in well last night. He looked as if he was...
Yeah, I'm guessing you're talking about Edouard there, Peter. Yeah. Edouard looked very much more at it last night, didn't he? I mean, I think some of it, I've been critical on from day one, but he has had COVID and he has had a stop-start season. But last night was a bit more like Edouard in the partnership with Griffiths. And, Ruffy's talking about identifying players going forward. I'd be very surprised if Edouard's there next season at all. Griffiths almost certainly will be, of course. And we're hearing today, Peter, that Ben Davies as well has signed a pre-contract from Preston. So the rebuild is already started.
Yeah, and with that in mind, Hugh, I mean, Stephen, I'm going to get your comments on this. Prior to the game, the manager came out and he was talking about Vasilius Barkas. After the match, he also had a comment on why he changed Barkas for Scott Bain.
Just that, I don't think Vazzy's settled. He's not the presence at the minute that he can be. I think he needs a bit of adaptation, more time. I don't think he's up to the speed of the game here and the physicality of the game. I made the decision to bring Scott back in. I think he's been knocking at the door. He's done okay. He's comfortable tonight. So, Vazzy, you'll probably see the best of him as we go along, but not just at this present moment.
What an interesting comment there on your goalkeeper. That certainly caught me by surprise, Stephen.
Yeah, it's surprising. The biggest thing I think is the amount of money they spent on him. And he's come in, he's been signed as a number 1. Now, I totally accept and think Neil Lennon's right that players take different amounts of time to settle, get the best out of them. So I can totally get that. And but when you're signing a number 1 to come in, you're really needing somebody that's going to hit the ground running, and that hasn't been the case at all. And And I think the manager's probably thought this for the last month. I would go as far as saying from the cup final that he's been unsure of it, and I think it's got to the point where he's just thought there's no other way we can put this other than he's not adapted to the league as of yet. So I'm going to need to take him out the firing line, and there was no other way for him to go. As soon as he decides he's not playing him, I think the best thing he could do was just be upfront about it and come out with it.
Yeah, Hugh, if three or four left backs have all had trouble trying to make that position their own after Kieran Tierney, 3 or 4 goalkeepers are going to struggle to replace what Fraser Foster offered for Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, the other cliche is about football is, and it's a cliche because it's true, is building a team through the spine, just going, say, 1-5-9, for example, and it's easy to see, I mean, if you just restricted yourself to that simple observation this season, you could see Celtic's problems. They've not had a goalkeeper that they've hung their hat on. They've not had a centre half that they could hang their hat on through injuries to Julian, and of course just the awful form of Duffy. And at number 9, I've already touched on, Edwards not being fired, and whether that's disenchantment or COVID or both. So 1-5-9, they've just not won. Foster's been a huge loss. I mean, if you talk to any professional footballer, they'll talk about the importance of a goalkeeper, and Foster had that real confidence, and it doesn't. You don't have to have very long memories to see what the wall could do for Celtic. That match against Barcelona would perhaps need a long memory, but just over a year ago, almost single-handedly winning a cup final against Rangers as well. So I think he's been a huge miss for Celtic this season.
Yeah, one thing that pleased the manager was, of course, the players' attitude.
It feels good. It was a good performance. Like the way we played, like the energy and the variation on our play as well. And, I'm disappointed we didn't win the game by more, but that's a very small disappointment. Just the attitude and the enthusiasm of the players was excellent tonight.
As far as the opposition was concerned, Roughie, I am still reluctant to write Hamilton Accies off, because once they get into a scrap, they'll be there or thereabouts. I mean, it was a stonewall certainty they were going to play Marius Ogunpole last night, because he plays like a battering ram, and then Moyo just picks up the scraps here and there. But they still have a bit about them that suggests to me this is going to go right down to the wire with who's getting relegated, unless, of course, you get into some kind of WhatsApp call and there's a vote called.
No, I was surprised at Stevie at the beginning of the show saying that, the next season we'll get tested on. He must know something we don't know. That there is going to be promotion and relegation this year. I mean, that's another matter.
Just let it go. Let it go, Stephen. He's a that chip forever and a day.
Hamilton know how to beat the teams they need to beat, and that's why they've survived. They know how to beat the Ross Counties. They know how to beat the teams that are down there with them, and they seem to do it year on year. And I think Brian Rice will be confident that the players that he's got there will be good enough when it really, really comes down to it to win games against these teams, that his team will be up for it.
The Accies boss is basically saying it's too early to talk about relegation.
Yes, far too early. We've got games in hand as well. That's just, we've been here tonight against Celtic, very difficult. But I think we saw the spirit and the effort for the boys, and with a couple of chances first half, we should have took. And that might have spooked them a wee bit. I'm not saying it would have. I'm just saying it might have spooked them a wee bit.
Yeah, had a big chance, but Moyo blew it. That was really the main moment for them. So Celtic get their 3 points and end that barren run of 4 games without a win. The big result, the big shocker, Stephen, Roughie, myself and Tam McManus go through this predictor week in, week out, and I would have actually probably have called the whole thing off if someone had predicted Dundee United 1, St Mirren 5. I mean, I just did not see that coming. Did you?
No, I didn't. I would have said that I think St Mirren have a chance of of winning. I think that what Jim Goodwin's done this season, although a lot of the times the results haven't been there, he's definitely got a lot more organisation. They've got a threat going forward, and going on the back of kind of the semi-final result, you're thinking it's a to go. Although Dundee United away was I would say very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, the semi-final result I think he's talking about is basically has given them the confidence. The other point on this is, of course, St Mirren got a couple of penalties. That's one of the debatable points on this. We'll discuss that with the guys and get their thoughts on it as well. But there's no doubt about it. I think, as you mentioned there, Stephen, the confidence of the semi-final, although they were gutted to miss out, they're certainly capable of, I think, going into that top six on a regular basis and staying there.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about the Hamilton and relegation, from sixth place down, no one of their teams is safe or consistent enough. I think everybody's got results that you're looking at the weekend and you're quite surprised by some of the results, and that's where St Mirren are a team that are on the up. They've beaten Rangers, getting to the semi-final. There's definitely more organisation. Like we touched on, Hamilton can get results. St Johnstone have picked up, and so it's very tight. And for St Mirren, definitely are looking forward with not only their signings and stuff like that, but the way they play as well.
Yeah, they were well worthy of the points, Roughie, but I thought they were lucky in one of the penalties. I mean, they got two, but Mark Reynolds looked on, and couldn't believe that the first penalty, because it didn't look as if there was too much contact.
No, the second one, he actually turned his body, to get away from him. It came at him so quickly, the only thing he could do was try and get out the road, and that's been the matter all season, is the inconsistency of the referees deciding what's handball and what's not handball, and that's what gets everybody really, really frustrated. But I think the Dundee United manager will have to go back to where he was before and being hard to beat. There was a wee run there when they were getting a lot of draws, whether it was nothing each or one each, and they were playing well, and all of a sudden he's playing three strikers. Fair enough, he's trying to play attacking football and get as many people on the park to score goals, but when you do that, if you start leaking them with that amount, you've got to start to reassess, what you should be doing to get yourself up in that top six.
Okay, Hugh, this is the question for you. It's probably me being the cynical journalist here, but wage cuts and, of course, the club at this point needing money from the fans. You just wonder if the incentive or the desire is still there among that club. The alarm bells always go off in my head when there's money problems and players are looking and thinking, we've still got to produce.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of, like downing tools or anything like that, but I would imagine, like most working men and women, and that's what footballers are, you can take a hit, psychologically if your wages are getting cut and there's an atmosphere of the siege atmosphere around the club, and I think that's only being human. I think the if you look at the league as well, Peter, we're touching about Hamilton and earlier, that Hamilton will not be bothered by this, and I mean that in a nice way. I mean that they will not be panicked or thrown by this. This is what they will have expected all season. Brian Rice will have expected all season that that they're going to be in this position or thereabouts, and they'll deal with it accordingly. What the problem is sometimes is when you get parachuted into that position, and you start to lose a lot of games, and suddenly you're 5th and 6th in the league, and then when it comes to March, you're actually 11th in the league. That's when the problem starts, and I think that's a real danger for Dundee United. I mean, you don't want to go too much on one result, but that was a real, he's talked about the alarm bells. That was a klaxon result the other night there, because you just don't want to be the side that's coming down without a parachute.
Yeah, and talking of pressure, Ross County, it looked as if it started well for them, but suddenly Motherwell come back into a goalkeeping blunder, Roughie, and suddenly Motherwell are back in there, and they get what I think is an invaluable 3 points, because if you listen to Tam Cowan on the Tuesday, the sweat's lashing out of him right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of Motherwell supporters will be like that as well, and I think they knew if they'd went up there and get defeated, it would have been a hard struggle to get them out of that. But the thing, that second goal, I don't know about you, Stevie, I've never seen anybody leap that high, apart from Ronaldo, for a header for the second goal. It was,
McGabby's.
I don't know how he got that spring from a standing jump. It was just incredible. He was at least 2 feet above everybody else. It was a fantastic header.
Yeah, only you as a goalkeeper could mention a fantastic header when the keeper made a blatant blunder. That's fantastic.
Don't talk about them.
Don't talk about that union, by the way. You're unbelievable. Anyway, no, listen, full marks to Motherwell. They got the 3 points. If you are, again, we looked at St Johnstone, Aberdeen. It was always going to be tough. I thought it was going to be a draw. In the end, it proved to be the case. Aberdeen, I just think sometimes you always get these periods during the season, Stephen, where they just fall flat.
Yeah, I think, and I would put that down to potentially the size of their squad. If you're looking at the old firm, in these wee periods where the manager might want to freshen it up with a few extra faces, it's harder to do that in an Aberdeen team, a Hibs team, than the likes of the old firm. And for players, the constant relentless of game after game, you maybe feel fine and you think, oh, I've recovered quite well, but the wee just small details of the sharpness, the final pass, that just is lacking, and I think that's where some of these results you're talking about come from.
Yeah, the big bonus, Hugh, is Peter, Dave Cormack saying, yeah?
No, I was just going to say that's what we're talking about earlier with Rangers. Rangers have got the players to come on and change the game. Aberdeen don't. Aberdeen just have workman-like players sitting on the bench who might come on and turn the game for you, whereas the players sitting on the bench with Rangers will come on and do something.
Yeah, the more serious point off the pitch, Hugh, is Dave Cormack saying they're not going to go bust, but a number of chairmen, chief executives, and clubs, you can see the worry has intensified again. The longer this goes on, and I presume it's going to go all the way to the end of the season without fans.
Yeah, and if, I think that's a red hot cert now, Peter. I don't think you'd find many people would dissent from that point of view. But here's the absolute real could be killer for clubs is that how about April, May, when season ticket books are beginning to be renewed, that suddenly it becomes clear that there'll be no football people inside stadiums, or very few people inside stadiums this calendar year. But that I mean nobody in for the first half of the season. That will have a huge impact on season ticket books. I mean, football fans in Scotland in particular really rallied round clubs last summer and bought their season tickets and gave the clubs money in the bank to go forward with. I think clubs are really, they're really bothered by the notion, and it might be more than a notion, that it becomes clear in April that we're not going to get fans in by, say, December, and season ticket books suddenly take a great hit, a massive hit. So we're far from out of the woods financially in Scottish football.
Yeah, it's a prime example, though, Stephen, of how special this country is with regards to football. I can totally understand why the government don't want to give any yellow or red cards to the game being played, because quite simply, take Celtic and Rangers out of the equation because they've got a vast support who are going to give season ticket money for the television if they can't get into the grounds. But the other clubs, including your own, have a fan base that's not only fanatical, but they're at the core of the club. They will dig deep. Dundee United fans dig deep. Hearts, with a billionaire, digs deep and saves more than a few clubs out with Hearts. I mean, it's amazing that the fan base just will not let the clubs die. And if you look at the overall financial picture, some of them should be gone by now.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a credit to every fan in the Scottish game. I think if you maybe look a bit more into it in the more recent years, I think with the whole fan ownership coming in and clubs making that a real viable option, that maybe gave you an insight to what incredible sport it is for the country and how much the fans do, like you say, make it be a bit of about the community. But just going on from Hugh's point on the season tickets, I think fans will go again and they'll pay them even if they're not getting into the stands. It's more than the match day stuff. Just from hearing it from our club, that the revenue you lose out in a match day for hospitality programs, everything like that, is where this black hole is, that there is no way of getting around that. There's no alternatives. There's nothing else you can do. I mean, people at the club are trying to be as creative as possible, but there's a limit to that with what you can do, and that's the biggest worry, I think, for clubs going forward, is the match day experience and what that pulls in for clubs.
Peter.
Yeah. Okay.
Peter, I was going to say, Peter, Hugh's right. You won't see the damage of this year to the beginning of next year. At this moment in time, every club must be, I would like to think every club is assessing where the future is. I mean, we have one board meeting a month. We've had 3 board meetings, this month. We're a debt-free club. We're looking to the future to see how much this is going to be a hit at the end of the year. Now, as I say, we're debt-free. What's it going to be like for Dundee United and all these clubs who are 3, 4 million, 5 million in debt? They're going to have to start doing something. They're going to actively, physically have to do something to their playing staff or their stadiums or whatever. At the beginning of the season will determine what clubs are starting and what clubs aren't.
Yeah, they're going to have to be creative, but I genuinely believe, and I hate to go back over this, if we had almost a socialist attitude to it, and I'm not going down a political route here on this, but a socialist attitude of coming together as a group to work out how to take away some of the pain and collectively share it, then I think would be in a better place. And that's why, Hugh, I think that maybe clubs will look towards accepting a Rangers and a Celtic Colts side, if anything, out of necessity, to try and get situations where you get 3,000 and 4,000 fans into grounds down at the lower leagues to help financially with the money and get money in that Roughie says you can't fill that gap short term. And incidentally, it's not just football. Practically the whole of the UK, maybe the world, but certainly from our own experience in the UK, everybody in lots of businesses, Hugh, are now contemplating starting from negative equity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got to remember that when all the government support ends, and end it will, regarding furlough and etc. and debt and interest-free loans, etc., reality then bites, and it'll bite hard, and people will have to make concessions in business that they might not best want to do. Stevie makes a very good point about hospitality as a percentage of match day income as well. And the Colts, if you could say, normally maybe some chairman would be against in Leagues 1 and 2 against Colts coming in. But if they can be convinced that they could get on those games, like gold hospitality packages and increased attendances with no bearing on promotion, in that the Colts teams could not be promoted, that might be enough to sway them. But Peter, the idea of everybody coming together and coming up with a solution that suits all, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, absolutely not. I have a point on that I want to put to you guys before we chuck it today. But can I just tell you, Steven Naismith, if David Martindale phones me, you, Hugh, and Alan Ruff and gives us 6 numbers for the lottery, we are all steaming in with the money. We're all, because it's just what a great couple of weeks.
Incredible.
Never mind that. What a great season.
Yeah. There's only 3 managers had a better start in their managerial career, which tells you everything you need to know about how well it's went. And I think, to be honest, last night's result was more where they're at as a club and probably a bit of the good fortune going in their way. I think from seeing that game, there was odds on that it was going to be a draw, but with the live a no-die attitude and working right to the end, they get their opportunity and they take it, and then they get the sin in the 90th odd minute. So it's incredible the work that's went in. And who's going to beat them?
Well, that's the other great point about it. I mean, listen, of the three managers that Stephen alluded to there, Martin O'Neill, Bill Struth, the other one, I'm going to look to Hugh because
I didn't recognise him.
No, the third one, I don't even know. Dave Shaw. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
of
know. I
Aberdeen.
mean,
Yeah.
well,
Dave
thank
Shaw,
you, Hugh, because I was wondering,
uh,
Dave Shaw? Who's Dave Shaw? Well, thank you, Hugh. I knew you would give us it.
Even to go that I wouldn't say Martin O'Neill is more my type. But even these guys, you know, Shaw and Struth are of such a vintage that I can honestly say, and this is an exclusive, and it's an absolute shocker. They're before my time, Peter. There you go. I mean, that's how far that goes back. I mean, that was when it was literally that was literally in another generation. I mean, the Martindale thing is just a complete phenomenon of you know, building a team on you know, strong foundations, what it can do well, and what it should do well, and maximising the chance of success. And good on them. You know, going to have a season where they're going to finish top six, definitely. Going to have a season definitely when they're in the cup final. I mean, that's for Livingston. That's just tremendous stuff.
Yeah, fantastic.
Can anybody remind me why Gary Holt left? Could he not hung on a week?
Well, to be honest with you, I think a lot of people, to his credit, David Martindale, a lot of people raised their eyebrows. Gary Holt, okay. You know, I'm sure there was a number of reasons why he decided enough is enough, but people would still have been looking on, thinking to themselves, well, wait a minute, the assistant was part of the reason why maybe they weren't performing the way they should be, but he's come in and he's transformed it, and he's a likeable guy. And of course, I think the icing on the cake for him, cherry on top, is quite simply he's passed as a fit and proper person, which I think has a greater lesson and legacy for other people to get a pathway out from previous misdemeanours. It certainly is to the SFA's credit, but they would have done their due diligence on David Martindale. So a nice story in a whole season, in fact, beyond a whole season, a whole year of misery for a lot of people. So a shining light. Now, just in case you have joined us and you want a quick update on some of the movers and shakers, as Hugh mentioned there, Ben Davis pre-contract Celtic, Jack Simpson pre-contract at Rangers from Bournemouth, the centre half. I'm sure Rangers actually hoping to get a couple more in, as Celtic are as well before the window closes. Funso Ojo has joined Wigan on loan until the end of the season from Aberdeen. He wasn't really getting a game up there at Pittodrie, so that makes sense. Dundee have announced the signing of Malaki Fagan Walcott on loan from Tottenham Hotspur. I tell you, Dundee have been busy, haven't they, Roughie? There's no worries there. They've managed to get the boy McMullen on a pre-contract as well.
Mullen.
Yeah, positive. From the supporters' point of view, that's what you want to see. You want to see your team pushing. I think we all know Hearts are well out in front, but they're not going to let it go. If they don't get the top place, they're going to make sure they're going to be in the next three. So, you know, that's a good sign, and good signings. You would expect them to kick on, get stronger, obviously, with the players they're bringing in. You know, and it's amazing. You know that today again, we're one of the clubs we're talking about with financial bother. You know, and now you see them bringing in players, so they must be working particularly well behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, and the big point here, Stephen, is the fact that, you know, when you think of Charlie's wedge, which will be considerable, I mean, it's amazing, but I actually thought the rest of the team would be coming in a huge lorry just to deliver the wage for Adam. But I'll tell you, the worrying thing for your lot at Tynecastle is if they start to sign them Zadze, Ravanelli and Burley again, I can see your bottle crashing.
Well, that would be impressive, that. But yeah, I'm sure I've heard Charlie drives away at the end of the month in a big white van with his wages in the back.
Absolutely. And, you know, I sometimes pinch myself, but Dundee fans, Hugh, have got a great... I mean, in your history, you pinch yourself because everybody, when you talk about Dundee, they're really aficionados, and I'm talking about yourself here. You start to think 1962, you know, Ian Muir, Gilzine, Charlie Cook, the great Dundee side that got to the European Cup semi-final. But then suddenly there's another generation who talk Canigia, Caballero, Nimzadze, Ravanelli. Who would have thought?
It's incredible. The Ravanelli thing's incredible. I was down at Manchester United, Old Trafford, one day in the press room, and it was a Champions League game, obviously, and there's a big cohort of Sky Italia, Peter, all over in the corner, and they're getting into their designer pasta, and there's this sort of guy with a dusting of grey through his hair, and I just went up and muttered to him in his ear, said, "This is a long way from from Dens Park, Senior Ravanelli," you know, and it's really incredible but I even look back on seeing Scottish football. I think we forget, you know, that we got you know, Scottish football could get the Chelsea centre forward, you know, an England, you know, admittedly only one cap, but you know, the adjunct to Shearer, Sutton and Shearer, could get him on the back of just one bad season at Chelsea, you know. Brian Laudrup, who'd played, of course, for Bayern Munich and Fiorentina, came straight to Rangers as well. I mean, there was that period in Scottish football when, you know, true, really top class players were coming through the doors. I don't see in the setup we have now, Peter. I don't see, you know, the world's elite battering down a door for a Betfred Cup tie at Glebe Park. But it was wonderful when it lasted.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm amazed that Senior Ravanelli didn't say to you, Hugh, "Where's my money?" But nevertheless, it was great to see you. Great to see him on our shores for that short period of time. Anyway, Scottish Premiership table. Let's have a look at it. I'm going to stick with Ross County, Roughie, just at the moment. Not for changing. I said it at the start of the season. Rangers win the title. I think maybe 8 games, possibly 9 away from clinching it at the top end. But at the bottom end, I'm going to stick with Ross County. Are you sticking with Ross County?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Ross County as well. I think they haven't dodged it very much over the seasons, but I think Hamilton will dodge it, and I just think they're losing bad games just now. Now we know why they wanted the boy White from Motherwell. You know, things are changing up there. Yogi's trying to do his bit of magic by bringing players in. He thinks he'll pull them out the hole, but I think it's going to be a hard season for Ross County, and we'll just have to wait and see in that one.
Yeah, are you sticking to your prediction, Hugh?
Yeah, just I predicted Hamilton just on the basis of, you know, that I always predict Hamilton and I'm always wrong. But I always predict it. I mean, I really do think football is predicated on budgets. I really do think that in the long term. And what Hamilton have done in the lowest budget in the league is astonishing. And I praise Brian Rice and his predecessors. I just believe that it can't last forever. One thing about Ross County, I would think as well, is that in Roy McGregor, they've got somebody who's got a bit of money, who knows what it's what it means to stay in the top division, and there might be reinforcements coming before the end of the transfer window.
Yeah, one thing that's a lesson that I think many a chairman could learn, Stephen, is that Hamilton, there was a moment where there was a real clamour for Brian Rice to get the sack, and the board stuck by him. I mean, a lot of people are unhappy at Neil Lennon still being in his position. The board stick by him, rightly or wrongly, they'll make their call on it. But Hamilton, I've got Brian Rice in there, and he's still battling away.
Yes, and I think his experience alone gives him that extra. It's similar to we were speaking about Derek McInnes last week. If Brian Rice isn't the manager, who are you going to get that's probably got the experience and isn't as big a risk? I think he's also shown in a lot of the games that he's played that the team understand what he wants from them, and they play for him. It's not as if they're going out every week and there's no hope in games. In every game they play, they seem to have a chance and they seem to be in the games for long periods. and they've just been unfortunate in not getting enough points at the moment.
Yeah, as ever, when you get a full card in the Scottish Premiership, Gabriel Antoniazzi, our reporter, picks the team of the week.
Max Stryjek kept another clean sheet for Livingston and gave his defence confidence with a commanding performance. Matty Kennedy was the best player in an otherwise terrible game, getting forward from wing-back. Joe Shaughnessy captained his side to a 5-1 win and scored the opener himself. Philippe Pilander was outstanding for Rangers as they kept their 20th clean sheet of the league season. Jake Carroll is back to full fitness and got an assist for the leveller. Jamie McGrath kept his cool twice from the spot and he's up to 9 goals for the season. Glenn Kamara has been the best player in Scotland this campaign and was his fluid best on a terrible Easter Road surface. Ryan Flynn made his first start in nearly a year and impressed in the middle. Scott Pittman got the second for Livy as his manager branded him a club legend. Tony Watt is Motherwell's main man and worked tirelessly for 3 points. Christian Dennis only came off the bench, but he grabbed a goal and an assist.
Well, I'm going to have a word with him. I don't know if we all agree with those players. He always I don't know whether he's had a bung at Roughie, but he always seems to get an Aberdeen player in there, and there's no Celtic players for yet another week. He's clearly got it in for them, Roughie. He's just bombing every one of them out. What did you make of his team?
Well, I added the big Motherwell centre half just for that goal. Just for that header, I thought it was superb. But apart from the defence, I would agree with most of the other ones.
Yeah, I like it with Gabriel. I like it when he does the team of the week. It takes the heat off everyone else, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyway, there's your team. A couple of wee things I want to get your thoughts on. Just out of curiosity, how can a team suddenly lose 3-2 to Raith Rovers, and remember, yous were 3-0 down, and then suddenly turn it around, the Jambos, and spank them 4-0?
Yeah, I think the game at the weekend, we gave up some very poor goals from our standards. Their second goal was a penalty that we would argue was not a penalty. But to be honest, at the end of that game, we probably done enough to get a draw. We had enough chances. Jamie McDonald had a fantastic game that night, and then the game the other night there, I think they'd put a lot into the game at the weekend, and their energy levels weren't at what they were at the weekend. And Raith are a very good team. They try and play good football, but we were on the front foot and scored at good times, and it became a comfortable evening.
Yeah, and the great thing about yourself, Stephen, because you're with your teammates, because whether they've just signed or whether they've been in for a while, you always, like Roughie, know how to pronounce their names, and you're always, you're meticulous on pronunciation, because if you've watched this show over a regular period, if you don't know how to pronounce it, just do what Roughie does and make it up. So I'll save you the embarrassment.
I've got a different technique. I've got a different technique. I go, big man, wee man.
Yeah, I do that usually if I don't know someone, Stephen. I walk up and go, all right, bud, how are you? I haven't seen you in ages. But Armand Nanguile, I think maybe not a bad shout for him. Does he look the part? Scored 2 goals.
Couldn't have had a better debut for that. I think it suited us at that time of the game. Raith were down to 10 men, so there was a lot of forward play and balls in the box. So he was in front of a goal. He definitely knows where the back of the net is. He's only been in for a few days, so there's not been much more to see of him. But the manager went on about wanting a different option from especially Liam Boyce, who's obviously been the main striker. And the big man gives us a different dynamic up front. But the one thing he's shown is he's confident, and I think he wants to get in the team. He's not coming here just to be a bit part player.
Yeah, full marks to him. Nice debut. Down south, there were a number of games. I don't know about you guys, but Roughie sometimes watch Bake Off, but I'll certainly be watching Tottenham Liverpool tonight. Elsewhere, I was absolutely gutted to see Burnley defeat Aston Villa goals to 2. When I was watching last night, I couldn't believe it. But Burnley got the job done. And elsewhere, suddenly, Hugh, Manchester United, I never thought they were in the running for it. I was amazed they were at the top of the league, but last night they were ranked rotten.
Absolutely, and it doesn't come to any surprise because last week, I think it was only 7 days ago, the four of us were asked who'd win the title, and none of us even considered Manchester United. It was I think it was heavily split between Man City and Liverpool, and for that very reason, Manchester United are just not a team you can hang your hat on. One of the stunning things, though, is that they always say that class is permanent, and the form is temporary. But De Gea, the absolute the plummeting in his fortunes, and it's not been. It's been long term, Peter. It's he's had these real patches of just being very, very poor, and that kind of surfaced again last night. And I just wonder if Solskjaer, and I mean, he's got a ready-made replacement in Dean Henderson. I just wonder if that's something he switches. But I just don't think Manchester United have the kind of substance at the moment to challenge even their neighbours across the street, who I think, or across the city more correctly, who I think are looking really ominous at the moment.
Yeah, Stephen, I can't see past Man City. My heart says I want Liverpool to win the league, but I just think City are starting to look like the well-oiled machine that they did a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, I think that is the key thing for me, that this part of the season they've now upped their gear and they're in full flow. The one spanner in the works is De Bruyne been out for maybe the next month or so, which will have an impact. And I would go as far as saying as an outsider Spurs, just with Mourinho. I think tonight will be a big test, but if they get a result tonight, it puts them right in the mix, just with the manager's experience of getting results. The one brilliant thing about the football starting late the season starting late is there's football on every night, which is fantastic.
It's a great line that you said there. Is your marriage in trouble, Stephen, because of that?
No, my wife's quite understanding, because I'll tell you a story. See when I was at Everton and Martinez came in, so we all had to be in at breakfast at the same time in the morning, and you would be going up and in the queue for your breakfast, and the manager would come and tap you in the back, and he'd be like, "Oh, and did you watch the football last night?" And then he'd ask you a question about it to test you, to see if you had been watching it. So I was straight home and I was like to my wife, "Look, I need to watch every game that's on just in case the manager asks me." I stick to that the day. So every manager I've had since always asks me every day about the games. That's what I tell my wife.
I mean that's the worrying aspect of it, Roughie. I mean that's great, because my partner said the exact same thing to me. I said, "What are we doing tonight?" And she says, "Well, you're not doing anything with any of us because Tottenham Liverpool's on." And I thought, wow, she's given me a get out of jail card, Roughie, because there are some games, Roughie. There has got to be a saturation point where you look at the telly and think, I'm not watching that.
Yeah, but obviously we're not in the same circumstances as Naisy, who probably stays in a big mansion with 4 rooms, with 4 different tellies, with 4 different games on. He probably runs between the rooms and he hears a goal, just to catch up on the other games that are on, because you can't just be taking a chance of just watching the one game if there's 3 on at the one time.
No comment.
Well, actually, I mean, I can jump in. I'll just put a word of warning to you all. About all being so keen to watch a game every night. I've spent since Sky came on. I was the first one in to buy a Sky. Remember the huge dishes that you could get? And you could actually commune with the aliens on Mars through them. I got one of these big dishes, and from then on, I've done nothing but watch football every night. There's a wee cautionary tale. Can I just say the last sentence is, "I live alone."
Yeah. Well, listen, Hugh, at the end of the day, we are that's why we keep calling you, to make sure you're okay, because you're one of our valuable team members. Although I can't believe, Hugh, as one of the most respected journalists in Scotland, you didn't immediately jump in on Roughie's comment there and say, wow, that's a front page headline. Stewarton man has 4 bedrooms. I mean, surely that's a front page in the local paper. That's called a hotel.
The truth about Stephen, of course, is not that he lives in Stewarton. He owns Stuart. That's it.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
I'll have you know, Stuart's a great place.
Him and Charlie meet up at the end of the month in their white vans and just have a wee chat.
I was looking at Steven on that FIFA game, and he's listed as 6'4". That says Steven Naismith's not 6'4", but there's a wee asterisk. It's 6'4" when he stands in his wallet.
Yeah, listen, the good news is that the big worry, Roughie, for us, and this is the big dilemma, and it's something that a lot of people will consider, when we get to the point where we're all allowed out and we're all allowed to mix and we can have a staff party, Roughie, I can't wait, because obviously we'll get Naismith, who, he plays a bit of a double agent. He will race from his house to the BBC tonight. Then we've got Adam, who basically works for everybody. I mean, I'm sure he's on Al Jazeera talking tactics as well. Then you've got McManus now writing a column for the Edinburgh Daily Record, and he's on Hibs TV. I mean, I just hope they're all going to come to the staff party. None of this badge kissing, Roughie. I hope they're going to be with us.
Yeah, and I hope they bring that with them as well, because they must have a lot of it.
Poor Roughie just thinks about the Dodge magic. Anyway, just before we go, just on the point that we were talking about earlier, and I wonder if you guys can give me an overall view on it. It's just a personal opinion, but as well as maybe Rangers and Celtic, Colts going into the bottom end of things, because of the financial situation, because of this continual pressure from big businessmen trying to force the issue with UEFA and FIFA. We've talked about the inevitability of clubs eventually forming some sort of Super League. I know this is slightly controversial, guys, but I think when you look back at who wins the Scottish Premiership regularly over the last 30-odd years. I mean, we're now looking at Aberdeen such a long time ago as the last team to win the Premier League. I really hope in the future that Celtic and Rangers can go to some kind of Super League, and then the rest of Scottish football has a kind of an ability to continue without them, because it is getting a bit boring with just two teams. I just feel that way about it all. Rangers win it, Celtic win it. The two of them are at each other's throats. That 9 in a row, 10 in a row, 32 in a row. Who cares? I think there needs to be a change in the structure. And by the way, Hugh, we're not just insular in our thinking. People in Holland, people in Italy, people in Germany are all thinking the same thing.
Well, I can certainly talk from the German perspective, Peter, because I go over there a lot, and I've got friends over there, and over the years going to Bundesliga games, you talk to support, and German football really, really, as you know, strong, powerful, a real force in the Champions League, but there is now almost an acceptance. The Munich are untouchable. You could even hear it this morning, and Michael Zorc, who's the sporting director at Dortmund, talking about that old line that we've heard in so many big leagues now, that Champions League place is the target for the season, and that really is a bit dispiriting, for any league, and it's happening. It's not just Scotland, as we know. It's happening to a great extent all over the place. The interesting thing this year, and I'm interested in what Steven says there, that this year, in England, it's been a bit. You're actually looking at England at the moment and going, it's a bit up and down. I mean, I actually think Man City, and I think all of us do, have got that pedigree and go on. But there's some teams in England, Tottenham and Leicester as well, and Southampton to a certain extent, are having a little tilt. But I think a European Super League's inevitable, Peter, because it's all about money, and that's basically what professional football now is all about.
Yeah, John Flanagan says, no, we're Scottish, we'll stay here, we're a Scottish club. And some people think we're being disrespectful on that point. And some fans just don't like the fact of Celtic and Rangers not dominating. But Stephen, I don't know about you, but I think the way the global situation is, and maybe this pandemic out of it will force the issue, but even on an insular basis, are we going to go the next 20 years just Celtic and Rangers?
I think, like we've said, this Super League in Europe, I think it's got more legs now than it ever has done to happen. I think the one big question that's ever been asked or posed, if the Old Firm weren't in Scotland, would the product still be big enough to attract good sponsor, good TV deal, things like this? Now, I think in the short term, it would get a setback because the Old Firm brings so much in terms of finances to it. But if you've got, like you said, different winners every year or it being very competitive, then the young generation will naturally go and watch these teams. And you would hope that then they would have an affiliation with them and become fans, and it blossoms from there. I think that's the one big question would be: would it go like that, or would people see it going back to like an Irish league where there's not as big an interest, if you like?
Well, that's the interesting point on it. And Roughie, I'm going to leave you with the last word on it, because quite simply, the reason why the English league still has that competitive edge and that ability to maybe have a Leicester come from nowhere to win it, albeit, it's rare, is because clubs have got such a huge amount of money. If you get £150 million, if you've got a good manager who's shrewd in a season, you can transform your fortunes. That's why it's so loved across the world, because of every team's capable of beating a team, on a regular basis. I just think we don't have that. We have a certain predictability about it. And I think there would be a real attraction if clubs, you only have to look at Hibs when they were in the first division all those years ago, bang, winning it, people follow them, win the Scottish Cup, huge fan base. Hearts win the Scottish Cup, huge fan base at Hearts as well. I think there would be a demand. Dundee United sells out.
Yeah, it's a couple of things for me. First of all, from a player's point of view, if I was still playing, I would miss not playing Rangers and Celtic. To me, Rangers and Celtic come calling, or you're going to them, was a highlight of my career anyway. I just loved playing in the games and what they brought out of you. So for me, that would be a miss. And I agree with you on the competitive sides. The Aberdeen and the Hibs and the Hearts and all that might start winning leagues, and the crowds would come back because they're winning, and that's the way. My biggest problem was if there was going to be a Europa League, elite league of 12, would Rangers and Celtic at this precise moment get in it? I don't think they would. I think they'd have to wait. I think there's no doubt once the money starts flying about and they get the money that the English clubs are getting and the Germans are getting, yes, they would be in it. But where they are at this precise moment in time, I don't think there's as big an attraction to have them in a top 12 in Europe.
Okay, it's just one of those little thought-provoking discussions. Good to hear from the guys. Thoroughly enjoyed the show. Hope you did too. Don't forget to follow us on our Facebook. And thanks to the countless amount of people who share the stream with their friends and let them know that we're here. It's a football show. You get opinion. Some you like, some you don't. That's the nature of it. But 99.9% of the people who join us and offer their thoughts on our Facebook and YouTube, there's a lot of decent people who love their club and want to talk about their club in a respectful way. So thank you to each and every one of you on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Next month coming up, we've got a fantastic hat-trick prize and a chance for you to win yourself an iPad, an Xbox, and a fantastic canvas of the late, great Diego Maradona. So that's me just teasing. What you'll have to do is answer a very simple question and get yourself in the hat to win that competition. From Steven Naismith, from Hugh McDonald, from Alan Ruff, and from myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit